Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh man, this is going to be a tough one. First of all, welcome back. This is a series, if it's new to you, called Philosophy Corner. Something I started doing a few weeks ago and it's kind of just stuck. It's a sort of lecture. I know people love to be lectured to. And you may be asking, well, who the hell are you? What gives you any sense of authority? Why should we listen to you? And the short answer is you don't. You don't have to. I'm not asking anyone to listen. I get asked all the time, who's your target audience? You should put some thought into who is your target audience. Who are you selling to, essentially? And I started thinking about it. I've been thinking about it for some time. But I've come to the conclusion that my audience is whoever will listen. And if no one listens, that's fine. I'm still going to continue to talk because I have things that I want to say. I have things that I want to externalize and get out there in the world. And as much as I'm trying to throttle my own ego just like anyone else, there are some things that I feel as though I need to express. I am an artist after all, and part of that comes with creating art. And art can be as simple as your self-expression in a number of different forms, getting as close to maybe your intention as possible, or maybe you have no intention and it's just something that came out. Anyway, we're not here to define art. That's not what we're doing today. The point of this video is to discuss how one makes a living in 2023, or any time really. If you're watching this 5 years down the road, 10 years, 20 years, it doesn't matter. Next week, it's all the same, because we're all struggling with this idea of making a living. What does that mean, making a living? Well, first, if we look at the etymology of the words making a living, we're talking about first creativity, creation of some kind, and living. Really, the life that we're trying to create here, the living, it's already happening, right? We don't really need to do anything unless we end our lives, or our life ends suddenly. We're living. We're not dead. We're alive. And that means that we're living. Making a living, I guess, speaks more to the quality of that life. It's, are you able to sustain yourself? Are you able to provide for your basic needs? Shelter, food, water, security. Are you able to provide for yourself and your dependents? That's really what we're asking here. So the reason I'm so anal about this stuff, so picky about the wording, is because words matter. And I think we don't take into account how important words are sometimes. We're all sort of trying our best to convey messages from within to each other, and sometimes they hit the mark, sometimes they don't, sometimes they're way off, and other times they resonate with each other. The difficulty here becomes that not everyone's going to receive your message. Not everyone will receive it in the same way. And in some ways, that's a good thing. That enriches our communication with each other. It allows us to have very, very interesting, colorful conversations. We're all unique after all. We're all going to have our own sort of reasoning and our own way to order the chaos in the universe. But where am I going with all this? I'm not even sure. But the point here that I want to make with this video is mainly that, like is said in the Bible and other religious texts, and probably been uttered a number of times, if God provides for the birds and the bees and the insects and the animals of the world, what makes you think that he wouldn't also provide for you? No reason not to. Now, for anyone who is not religious or spiritual or perhaps atheist, and by the way, I was atheist at one point, so I understand that perspective. I basically equate God to nature. Now, this is where I'm at with my understanding of what God and nature are. As far as I'm concerned, they're one and the same thing. Now, we could go into a debate on why that's not the case or why you agree or disagree, but that could be maybe a video for another day. But the reason I bring this up is that, okay, you don't want to use the word God, that's fine. What about nature, right? Nature, first of all, we'll have to define what nature is, and maybe that's another topic for another video. But what is nature? Like nature is the existence of life in the universe. That's the way I see it, and I believe that's as close to a scientific, definition as we're going to come up with. It speaks to the life that's happening, not just one life or one type of life or one species of life, but all life. Trees, plants, animals, everything, bacteria, amoebas, everything. Stuff that's floating in the atmosphere, It's all this thing we call life, and it's also nature. Now, we could go off on another tangent here and say, well, nature is also things that are inanimate objects that are maybe unfeeling in a way. We don't need to go there because, yes, I would say that still encompasses nature, but it's all kind of part of the same thing anyway, right? We're constantly looking to separate ourselves from nature, separate ourselves from our own realities, separate ourselves from everything else, everything around us. Why do we do that? What's the point of that? Well, if you look around in the world, there's a lot of segregation happening. It's the name of the game. Divide and conquer. People are easier to control if they're fewer in numbers, and those numbers are in conflict with each other, right? You just come along and scoop up the people in need and act as a hero. Forget where I heard it recently, but it's like anytime that there's a problem, the government comes along and says, "Here, hold my beer. I got this one. Don't worry about it," But it's our job to worry about it. It's our job to be involved. It's our job to do the act ourselves and not allow some corporation to do that for us, claim them to be benefits. Again, another tangent maybe, but it's all relating back to the same thing, is how does one survive, or let's go beyond survival, because survival, someone said to me recently that survival is not a comfortable thing, and it's not. Surviving is just getting by. We're not interested in just surviving here. We're talking about making a living again, right? Living. And living implies some sort of quality to it. There's a quality to this life. It's not just survival. We're comfortable now, right? We're not just getting by. We have a cushion. That could be a physical cushion to actually rest your bones on, or it could be a financial cushion that in times of struggle, we've got that cushion to back us up. It could be a cushion, could be space between you and someone else that you're not getting along with. Anyway, it's difficult to know sometimes how to make a living. It's difficult to know where to make a living. It's difficult to know how to use your talents and your gifts. Is something I say to my kids all the time, especially my daughter. How does one use their talents and gifts to make a living, right? It sounds obvious. It sounds easy. And maybe for some people it is. But for others, myself included in the past, it was a struggle. It's a damn struggle, because you don't necessarily always know until maybe later on what your good at and what talents are, I hate to say the word marketable, but in this day and age, that's really what it comes down to. Are you marketable? It sounds dirty to say it almost, you know? The other thing I was thinking about the other day is, are your talents and gifts monetizable? Can they be monetized? It just makes me feel sick when I say those things, but that's the reality of the world around us, right? It's how can you make money with your talents and gifts. It's not how can you spread the wealth or spread your good um, your good cheer, whatever. Spread your gifts to others and let them share in the benefits of those. It comes back to really serving your family and your community and serving yourself, serving a higher power. Anyway, I don't want to go off on too many branches here. We're already doing that enough, and I think that's just where I'm at mentally today. It's kind of a little bit scattered. I've got a lot of stuff going on. That's probably coming through. But I think we can bring it back home here at least and salvage this one. Boy, it's hard to do these things like live like this without editing, because the video editor in me just wants to chop out all the little mistakes and all the behavioral awkwardness and just, the stuttered speech and turn it into something that's polished. And I guess that sort of speaks to the topic of this video, right? Is that's not the way life works. That's the way that our entertainment industry has made it look. Social media has definitely lent a hand to that. But that's not real life. Real life is not polished. It's raw. And it's a little dirty. It's a lot dirty. It's filthy, if I'm honest. It's real, is what it is. And there's no sense in shying away from the reality because it's not convenient for us. It doesn't serve us in some way. That doesn't change the fact that that's the reality. And I love documentaries like What is a Woman, because it just puts things that most of us think are so obvious. Like, why would you even ask that question? But it's so basic. It's so obvious that most people just miss the mark completely on it. They never get to the root of even defining it, because they can't wrap their head around the absurdity of not even knowing what something so basic means. And I don't know. I just really enjoyed that movie. I enjoy all movies that are like a social critique or a satire of some kind. Can't get enough of that stuff, because I think that's what's lacking in our world is more critiques on those that would love to be in power. The ones that are running this world from the financial side. They or the political side need to be criticized. They need to be held accountable. They need to be made fun of a little bit, because we can't take them too seriously, because this is only public policy after all, right? It's make-believe. It's our attempt to create order in the world externally instead of within. It's encouraging and teaching people how to do that for themselves, so that we in turn have a more cohesive and more responsible society. Instead, we live in a nanny state that wants to be your parent and tell you what's good for you and give you your rights and privileges, right? And bringing this back to the topic of the video now, that's a major challenge in survival, in making a living, right? Because we said we're going beyond survival now. We want to be comfortable. So this means making a living. I'm repeating this now just for myself and also for the viewers to reestablish where we're going with this. But it's to, it's to be in a comfortable place where we're self-sufficient. We can provide for ourselves and our dependents. And maybe we're so successful one day that we're able to care for our extended family and friends. Wouldn't that be great? So making a living can involve eventually making a living for others. If you're an entrepreneur and you start a business and it's relatively successful and you got money coming in, you can afford to hire your family and your friends and your nieces and nephews, that's fantastic. Now you're beyond being comfortable. You are, I would say you're thriving at that point, right? But let's not jump ahead now, because the first step is survival. So let's back up a second and go back to survival to just look at some of the challenges there are in simply surviving in this world in this day and age. One of the biggest challenges that you'll encounter, I gotta say it, are these public service corporations, because they want to just be in your life so bad, right? They want to just convince you of anything that you need those services. You need those benefits. You can't really live without them. And that's one of the first challenges, I think, in order to survive right now. It seems so strange, mafia-like almost. That's one of the first challenges, because if you decide, and there may be some valid reasons, I would say right now, to go along with it and play the game, right away, whatever you earn, they're going to want a piece of it. Whatever you acquire as far as physical property goes, they're going to want a piece in some form, whether it's at the point of sale when you actually go to buy it somewhere, or if you buy a car off of somebody and you want to go register it. They've got their hand in your pocket around every corner, every turn. There they are, pulling out. For me, they'd be pulling out pocket lint. But as it becomes again a cash is king society, I think we're going to be seeing people going back to physical forms of currency. I don't think this digital currency this trend is going to last, but who knows? Survival also in a world where things are comfortable, relatively speaking. Okay, there's problems with the supply chain, and we've got virus concerns now, and political climate's a mess more than it's ever been. But we're still living in a comfortable world, so to speak. At least in the developed countries, you don't have to struggle too much. That's putting aside all the things that we've been through in the last couple of years. Once that finally went away and people pulled their heads out of the sand, it sort of went back in a lot of ways. In some ways, it didn't change. And for those of us that saw this one coming, and we knew it was going to happen, and we knew what the result was going to be, we're not going back to that sort of normal, right? We're not going back to that sort of world anymore. And it's been, along with the Great Reset, there's been a great awakening. And that's what everybody's been saying is, back to my point about segregation, there's been a line drawn in the sand, and people are either for, statism and globalism and doing things that way. But there's a very large percentage of people now that have woken up, and they're not happy about what they see, and I don't blame them. So the reason I bring this up is that you have to not only find a way to make a living and be comfortable, or survive in this case is what we're discussing. You have to also juggle sort of your position in, I want to say in society, but in in the class system. That's another challenge that you have to, if you're not making a lot of money to begin with, and we can assume that if you're surviving, that you're not making a lot of money, or you're not making any money, you're going to be living on the street if you're in the city, or you're going to be a country bumpkin, a homesteader if you live in the country. So it's kind of funny how we treat our homeless different based on where they are, in the city or in the country. I would argue that you'd have a much more comfortable life in some ways in the country, but anyway, I digress. Survival comes not only with acquiring the things that you need, but survival, means overcoming, potentially life-threatening situations like freezing to death, like not drinking enough clean water or any water. So we can start there, You can start with providing those basic needs for yourself, How do you make a living with your talents and with your gifts? It starts by covering your bases on the survival level, I think. You have to somehow get yourself in a position, and this doesn't mean necessarily going out and buying a piece of property. If you could do that, that's great. You can start there and say, this piece of property that I saved up for and bought has running water on it, and has a septic system. It's got a good house with a good roof and a good foundation. You can start there for sure, but even if you're renting, even if you're struggling to pay your bills, you can always take solace in knowing that you're in control as far as where the limited resources come in, where they go. And it's so sad to me to think that a lot of these people that don't have money coming in, or what little they have, it goes to drugs and alcohol. That's sad that they'll sacrifice eating or shelter, but when you look at the state of their lives, can you really blame them? I mean, I can't say if I was in that situation that I wouldn't be doing the same thing myself, A lot of the times, maybe it just drinking or drugs is the only thing that allows you to sleep on the sidewalk, Anyway, we can go back and forth with these things. We can go all over the place, but clearly survival is not enough. But you have to first cover those needs. If what you're doing, if you can't even pay your bills, if you can't even keep the lights on, you got to find a way to make more money. Like, there's no other way. There's no way around it. I've thought of every possible scenario since I've been a kid. Back in the day, my goal was to make $20 a day. I always figured, this was before inflation kind of went through the roof. But even $20 a day now, it wouldn't be enough, but I can't even think of how I would do that without going around and collecting scrap and selling things. I don't know. But just driving around on its own, the gas prices are astronomical now, so that wouldn't be viable. $20 a day is not enough. But the idea when I was a kid was if I could just find a way to make $20 a day, I could survive on that, and I wouldn't need to work, or that would be my job. Now, I understand, obviously, that that's exactly what it would be. That would be my job, is finding the $20 a day. Now, $20 is not nearly enough, but okay, if we tell ourselves, I need $1,000 to pay my rent. I need $500 a month to pay my groceries. And I'm not talking about budgeting here. This is not a budgeting video. But these are the things to be more than surviving. You have to be able to think about these things and act on them and rationalize and strategize. So let's say, all said and done, for a round number, let's say $2,000 a month. My costs, that includes my groceries, all my food, my toiletries, or whatever I need, whatever the average person needs, and bills, water, heat, electricity, you know, the basic amenities, basically, like the things that someone would need to be comfortable, right? Because now we're going beyond survival. Let's say you need $2,000 a month, and that's just breaking even. That's not putting any money in the bank. That's not paying off debts, nothing like that. This is just for your basic comfort needs now. So they're not really, some of them are not needs anymore. They become wants. But they're sort of necessary to get you to the next level. Like, okay, here's a quick example. I know we're running out of time, but I just want to make a quick example. If you couldn't afford to keep the lights on, if you couldn't afford to heat your home, how on earth are you going to be able to sit down and write the novel that you've been wanting to write, or paint the painting that you've been wanting to paint? Unless you have a way of making a fire and keeping your house warm, or having enough candlelight that you can paint by candlelight, which sounds delightful but not really realistic. You have to be at a certain level of comfort to get beyond comfort level. You have to establish a new bar, and once you hit that bar, then you can start looking at thriving, which means making other people happy because you've met all of your own needs. You're super comfortable. You're putting money in the bank. You have no debt. You don't owe anything to anyone. You're amassing assets and wealth, and you want to share the wealth. That becomes thriving, I think. And so in a roundabout way, we kind of discussed, how one makes a living, I think, in this day and age, in 2023. We didn't really discuss any specifics on how we leverage our talents and our gifts, but we sure defined a lot of things and established the groundwork for the levels that are involved. The survival to comfort to thriving. And I think that the best way to leverage, not to cram all this in at the last second, but the best way to leverage those gifts and talents, looking at it through the perspective of what we just discussed, in every category, in every level, there will be a way to leverage your talents and your gifts. And I think that's what the animals do. When we say God takes care of everything, including the animals, including humans, nature provides, is what we're saying there. Nature provides in that at the survival level, there will be a number of things that you could do, not just anyone, but you specifically will have talents and gifts and knowledge and information that you've acquired and education to get you through, let's call it level 0, the bottom level, the survival level. It could be as simple as you are a reality TV addict and you've watched a whole bunch of like Survivor or Alone or something, and you picked up just enough information that you have a slight edge that might help you to survive. It's a lame example, but you know what I'm saying. And then again, on level 1, when you get to the comfort level, that maybe there'll be more things that you can leverage to help you get to the next level. So in each level, what I'm saying here is in each level, you can leverage your talents and gifts more and more as you go. There's always going to be opportunities, right? There's always going to be a need for people that are good with numbers, that are good with math, that are good with logic, that are good with budgeting or business type math, or with letters and concepts and shapes and numbers. So we need people of all kinds. We need strong people. We need skinny people. We need big people. We need all people. Everybody has something that they're good at, that they can lend to contributions for a community, for a society, whatever it is. Everyone has it. You just gotta find what yours are. And I can tell you from experience, from someone who has spent a lot of time struggling with what are my talents and gifts. First of all, hard to define them sometimes. It's hard to figure it out. You have to basically be told so many times that you're good at something before you believe it, right? Some maybe have an easier time with that than others. For me, that was a hard thing, is to believe when people said, "Oh, you got a nice voice. You'd be good for e-learning courses." And like, I don't know, in my head, I'm always going to sound like a Muppet. Just the reverberation in my skull or something. Whatever other people hear, I don't hear it. But I've been told enough times that they like the sound of my voice. So really, whether I like the sound of my voice or not is inconsequential. It's, if other people are getting something out of it, well, maybe I can leverage that somehow. And that's when I recently started getting into voice acting and learning narration for real, like not just being self-taught and picking up tips and tricks here and there, but actually academically and classically getting trained, on something. It's a big deal, because you start to listen and pay attention to all the things around you that are in that area, in that category. Like when I hear narration now, I'm listening for those key things that I've been learning in my program. When I watch cartoons now, I'm imagining what those voice actors are doing to make those sounds for the characters. So you can apply that sort of thing to everything, to whatever talent or gift that you have, right? If you're a good mechanic, you're probably going to be looking around at cars and trucks and assessing them, maybe subconsciously, or maybe you're noticing cars that are well maintained versus some that are run down. But that could apply to everything. Doesn't matter what it is, whatever your craft is. I was talking with a friend not that long ago, and he was basically saying it was a good reminder for me that these sort of manual labor jobs are not here to stay. They will be disappearing more and more. And as much as people want to say, "Oh, taking our jobs away," like, these are not jobs that people necessarily want to do anyway. They just do them out of necessity because they have no choice, right? Nobody wants to work at 7-Eleven, nobody wants to work at the gas station. These are all things that can be automated with robots or AI and self-serve systems, whatever. These jobs are not necessary. And okay, you could make the argument that these people are going to be put out of work, but at the same time, it frees them up to do something more fulfilling in life than just pumping gas or serving someone across a counter. You can do something with your life that's a little bit more than that, than just being, a clerk. Anyway, if that's what you want to do, if that's what you like doing, go ahead. I'm sure there's lots of small business owners. There's still some mom and pop shops, that run these little stores. I can see the appeal in that just the same. It's just those sorts of jobs, especially for bigger corporations, are going to be disappearing more and more as time goes on, as things get more automated, So really, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to sit down and figure out what the next wave of jobs is going to be. It's going to be a lot of transportation industry stuff and energy industry and online e-learning and robots and drones and the list goes on and on and on. But you do your own research and see for yourself. That was just the examples I listed from the few articles I read on the topic. The more you look out there, the more ideas you'll get of what you could do if that's where you're stuck, or if you're in a place where you're not sure how to leverage your gifts and talents, or which ones would be the best ones to, just look out there and see what's coming, because it doesn't take much to figure it out, I'll tell you. Like, we can kind of assume that there's a recession coming too. So that's another thing to consider. That falls back into survival mode now, right? If the economy collapses, well, your cryptocurrency may not be as valuable as you think. You know, if the power grid goes down for some reason and nobody has electricity, your electronics and your machinery, and it's not going to be great. If we can't get fuel, the machinery not going to be as useful, you know? So all things to consider. But that could be maybe in another video some other day when we talk about assets, liabilities, investments, stuff like that, like business stuff. But I don't know. I went way over, but I think it was worth it because this is a I say this every time, but this is another heavy topic. You know, how do you make a living with your gifts and your talents? Like it's heavy. But hopefully, it is my hope, honestly, that this video, if you got to the end of it anyway, offered you something. You know, these lectures are not designed specifically. They're not designed at all. I'm just ranting here, but by sharing my opinion and lecturing at you, it's really to encourage a discussion. You know, the end game here is not just me flapping my lips, but actually to get a conversation going and tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me where you agree, you disagree, you think differently. I want to hear it, because it's only in realizing where I'm wrong that I can improve myself, right? That I can better my understanding of these concepts and then help more people maybe, or work together to create a community. It's all up in the air, but again, my target audience is whoever will listen. So if that's you, good for you, and I'll try my best to keep pumping out content. I'm trying to get them out there once a week on Thursdays. I think they come out at 9 a.m. or something like that, but you can look forward to one of these philosophy corners once a week. I'm going to try not to make them this long, but again, it was a very deep topic. I kind of went off and veered off in a few different directions, but I think it all made sense to how and what you can do to establish a living somehow with your own talents and gifts. So thank you very much for watching, my friends. I really appreciate your viewership and your support. Let me know what you think. I always appreciate your comments. Be well, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.